I get to know my students, and that's my biggest thing, that in September, I need to make sure that I know who they are as a student. And that means personally and academically. And if I can get to know them, I just feel like I can make that bond with them, and then they feel safe and they're able to take chances on their learning and take risks in their learning. That's my goal, always at the beginning of the year. So right away at the beginning of the year, we talk about if a student is in a fixed mindset or is a student in a growth mindset. So fixed mindset is, oh, I can't do this, or it's so hard, or I'm just going to give up. And growth mindsets takes it on as a challenge and saying, I can do this. I know it's hard, but I can still continue to work on it. I'm still going to try my best. And we give examples and we set stages and just everything in the beginning of the year for that. And all year long, we give examples of who has the growth mindset and who has a fixed mindset. And not saying people's names or anything, but what is an example of a fixed mindset and what is an example of a growth? And you'll hear the students even just going, that's a growth mindset, or do you have a growth mindset, or things. But I think that keeps it open for math, because it gives the students the freedom of, I can take risks. I can do these things. I might not get the right answer at first, but I'm going to try. And I think once you start that, it keeps the ball rolling of, I can then try other things, and I can now try harder problems. And once I have that, I can keep going. And, so I don't hear in my classroom hardly often of, oh, this is too hard, or I can't do this, or because they just need that gentle reminder of, do you have a growth mindset? And then a lot of times they just look at you and they're like, oh yeah, no, I have to work on this. So in that makes, I just think that really just establishes the foundation of math right away. But if they say they don't know it, they have to be able to explain their thinking of why they don't know it. And those kinds, because I want to make sure that they understand that they do. It's just they might get it from a different way, or they might choose it for a different method, or they might choose something different to do that. And maybe it takes them maybe 10 minutes versus a minute for some other kids, but they still know it. And I want them to understand that they know math. They know how to get those problems, but there are other methods to doing it. And so, and I think that that's where it sets that expectation of, I can't say I don't know it and get away with it here. It's more like they have to make sure that they can prove that they do know it, but maybe in different ways. And I'm going to make sure that it's fun for them. And I think that that's a big important part of teaching is, can you make it fun for them to learn, to create that growth mindset? And then give yourself that freedom to do those things. Give yourself that break of, making sure that you can go outside of materials that are there, and making sure that you can step out of your box of teaching, and making sure that all your students are successful. So I usually split kids into 3 groups. One of the groups is the remediation, where they were going to need more concrete types of manipulatives and things. Then the second group is more on target, where they're going to need more of representational diagrams, pictures, and using more abstract methods in that way than 2. And then the the third group is more abstract. They can come right in, they can do the assignment right away. So I'm going to go beyond what they need to be doing at that time. So I'm going to teach different concepts or different skills or something that maybe I didn't get to or I won't get to throughout this year, but we're going to go above. So really with the students that need more concrete strategies, I'm usually working with manipulatives with them. So again, I don't think it matters the quantity of how many problems they get done in a math journal. If they get 1 or 2 problems done, but they can show how they're doing it, and they can use manipulatives, and it starts to connect with them, that's where we're working on with that group then, or with the remedial, and that's great. And then we're going to get to just the students that are on target, if they can use a combination maybe of more, or more kind of representational stages like drawings and showing me things with pictures and showing me things with different diagrams and graphs, and then going into more abstract, then that's great. And then my challenge ones can usually go right into the abstract stage, and then I'm going beyond. So I'm either introducing a new concept to them, or like right now we're starting into multiplication and division and things like that, even though it's probably not part of the lesson, but I'm trying to move them forward and keeping them going that way then too. I always think of like, again, you have to know your students, of, where they're at within their math. And so I might not need to be so concrete with a student that already is in the abstract stage of, understanding of addition, understanding of subtraction. So doing manipulatives with them doesn't make as much sense. They need to go on and start doing the 2-digit, 3-digit, 4-digit, and different types of ways to do addition and subtraction, and then carrying it over into multiplication and division. But some students still have to be at that concrete stage for maybe some of all of second grade. And it's really understanding, your student of where they're at within the math. So a lot of times, like, I'm using manipulatives. It might not always be base 10 blocks. It could be different types of counters. It could be games. It can be other things of how to get them to be more tactile within their learning, or really understanding and being, more of a kinesthetic kind of way of teaching. So, and then in the more abstract kinds of students, I'm always thinking, how can I make this more challenging for them, and to make sure that they're understanding concepts that are maybe in 3rd grade or under in 4th grade. And it's understanding those kinds of concepts. And two, it's understanding that from here you do go to multiplication, and from here you go to 2-digit by 1-digit multiplication, and can you try this, and just keep trying. Your head always has to be going, and I'm constantly pulling out, everything within the years that I've had of teaching in my backpack of what else can I do with you, and what else can I do to make this more fun for you, because I want to make sure that you're not just sitting, or you're not just like, or it's too hard and you're not just sitting, it goes both ways. So yeah, and they're still really enjoying math because of all the different choices that they have to do within my classroom. So, they might not be able to understand it in one station, but maybe they got it in another station, or maybe it became more clear when we use more manipulatives in a different station, and then pretty soon we've got all the stations, and now all of a sudden I'm starting to get it. And that makes it fun for them then. So I just think because they're able to have that time to process with other kids, they're able to learn with other kids, they're able to have that time with me. That way, it just kind of ensures success. And that's your goal, always in math. You want to get your students to abstract. So that means you can give them a problem, they can solve it with a solution. Doesn't matter the strategy that they use, but they can come up with the correct solution. Lots of second graders just aren't exactly there yet. And so it's understanding again, go backwards then. If you feel that they're not conquering it, if they're not in that abstract stage yet, go back to the concrete and representational stage. And again, give yourself that freedom to do that. So for me, I want to make sure that my teaching is about 15 minutes, or like a whole group lesson is about 15 minutes. Then they get to get up and then move with that strategy that I'm working with. But I do really keep it really clear and focused of what my strategy is for that day. And everything that I have within my stations is geared around that strategy or that concept for that day. So, but I think they learn more by exploring. And it's that time where you have to just kind of let it go, a little, and watch them explore and really get into their own learning. When I teach whole group, that's the time that they have to be focused with me. And that's the time that they're learning this skill or something that I'm trying to teach them. But then when they get into their groups and their stations, it's time for them to talk with another partner, it's time for them to talk to the group, it's time for them to actually apply what they've actually learned and show that in their actual thinking. So I think that's like the most important thing with math, is get them going from this abstract kind of way down to like a concrete and representational way, so they can get to that abstract way. So you kind of have to break it down into those components. So I still, like I said, I keep it focused to the standard, or I keep it focused to the strategy that we're doing for the day. But then with the different stations, they have different choices within the stations that they can do. But they do have a managed time that they have to be in that station. So I do have them rotate still, but I still make sure that they have different choices of what they can do at that station. So if they feel like they're finished, well, how can they challenge themselves? And if they feel like they're not going to finish, well, how much can they actually finish to show that they've mastered or actually understood the strategy that we're doing. And I think that comes with like an activity in an actual like math journal, and then you go into a game, and then you go into, maybe it's IXL, or it's Prodigy, or it's within an iPad. But all those are different ways that you can show that I've met that standard. So then when you assess that standard, you have all these other ways that you've seen them do the standard too. So it's not just one test, it's all these other ways that you've seen them, you've copied, taken notes on them, and all those kinds of things too. So I take that all into consideration when I do my grades with them too. Sometimes because we have so much to do as teachers, and we see these standards, and standards become a checklist to us of I did this, I did this, I did this, we're done. And sometimes it's that mindset that you have to change of I have to really, again, get to know my students, where they're at in math, and what gaps are missing. What is something that I can help with filling that gap, and giving yourself that freedom to do that. Because, we have such a busy time and such a busy place that it gets harder and harder and harder to do those things. So I think that that's the biggest, just completely in my opinion of what we have to do as teachers of just understand that you have all these standards, yes, that you have to finish, but if they don't understand the foundation of that standard, they're not going to get there if you don't go backwards and start teaching that foundation. So I think that that's just giving yourself the freedom to do that and saying it's okay if I go out of my materials or go out of the things that the district gave me and go into your own things to help them out in that process. So, and also give yourself the freedom to make math fun, because if students start thinking math is fun, they're going to want to keep trying. And then all of a sudden their growth mindset starts to happen rather than, oh, math is hard, I can't do this. So make some fun activities, do some fun things with them that all evolve around math, but it might not be the way that the materials that you're given say to do it. So give yourself the freedom to do those things. If you don't have that foundation of number sense yet, all other math kinds of things are going to be very difficult for you. If you don't understand, how numbers are actually can operate or how you can actually work with numbers, it makes it very difficult for you to go on to do addition, subtraction, and all those other skills that you're going to need to know. So it's really going back to, and I've created different slides, and we've created as a team different things of number sense and working with numbers and trying to figure out what is 5 more, what is 5 less. Well, that's addition and subtraction. And understanding patterns of tens, well, that's addition and subtraction. And then tying that all into multiplication and division then as they start to go there too. So, number sense is really the core of math that you really need to make sure that they understand. And once they have that, then I feel like you can build in from that too. But there might be some students that didn't get it in kindergarten and didn't understand it in first grade, and I've got to go back to that to make sure that they have that, to make sure that they can be successful in second grade then. And we do a lot of times with number sense, when we start out with 5s, when we start with 10s, we'll relate that to money. And so we'll relate that these are nickels, and we'll show nickels, and then we'll count by 5s. And then we show dimes, and then we count by 10s. And so it makes that correlation of, you learn these patterns in kindergarten and first grade, now let's make sure that we connect it to money and showing the different coins and how to connect that way. So. Yeah, money is really just something that you have to apply to real life. And then kids can understand shopping, and kids can understand, I've got some money and I want to buy something for it. So if you can somehow apply that to that. But again, a lot of students need to take that step back of, what is a penny, what is a nickel, what is a dime, what is a quarter? How much do they equal, and how do we pattern count to make sure that's equal? So it's, arranging your money to making sure that you start at your largest money, pattern count, go to the next largest, pattern count, and keep on doing that. But really practicing that over and over again, because still some second graders still don't understand what is a quarter, what is a dime, what is a nickel, what is a penny, and then I have some of them that can give you change for a $10 bill, and again, I think that all of that is like, creating different types of games again to go with that. Like, I have a money store in my room where we have a game of, you have $10, you have that split up into different things, and now you're going to go shopping with the different things that I gave you. How do you create change to go shopping? Now, someone who doesn't understand nickels, quarters, and dimes in this game can understand with a partner, helping them out with, oh, this is what a nickel is, this is what a quarter is, and their partner can help them to make the change then, and they're seeing those things. But again, it's more abstract, but it's also concrete, because you're actually handling the coins and making that change with those different things. So I think that that's important then too. I think many students don't understand that when you have to ungroup, that's the biggest challenge. And so the way that I start out then with subtraction is we talk about you have to ask yourself a question. You have to say, like 8 minus 5, can you do 8 minus 5? And then we literally write a Y or an N next to it. And it gives a pattern of, well, if I put an N there, I have to then find the Y where I can actually ungroup from that. So, and then it starts out going that way of like, okay, so now I have an N, I need to somehow make that into a Y. And then that affords a different discussion of, well, how do I do that? And then so they're able then, and we start out with a concrete kind of way of using the base 10 blocks of, I now have 32 and I have to subtract 17. I don't have enough ones, so I have to take that 10 and I physically have to take it, put it off to the side and bring those 10 ones over. And so, and then we show how to like mark that on the equation. And so it's really starting out with step by step and going slow. So, I mean, making sure that they understand why or the reasoning of why. And so, because I think that that's what really hurts them as they're starting to go into the more abstract ways of just actually working on an equation of, okay, where did that 10 come from, or why am I crossing this off again, and why? So if you establish like the reason why with manipulatives and really working your way into like the representational and drawing pictures and doing diagrams and then finally going into the abstract, and you really need to go through those steps before they can actually start to be successful with it. So I think that that's why it's so important to slow down, and if you don't finish everything, it's okay, and take your time at being able to do that. So, so some other concepts really are like the regrouping of addition can be really confusing too. So, if you're adding your ones and you end up getting a 10 in your ones, what do you do with it? So again, it's really bringing them back to, here's what 15 looks like, what am I going to do with the 10, and where am I going to keep the ones, and showing them that again so they understand that this is the reason why I put it over into the tens place, or and again it's that explanation of why. So if I'm doing, like I said, with ungrouping, or if I'm doing something with addition, why does that equal that? So I think that that's really important. Time is a hard one for second grade, and really we're in a society that I don't know about clocks that much anymore. We're going into the digital age, but really understanding, like, can I have my own personal clock to manipulate it? How do I do the hour? How do I do the minutes? What does each minute stand for, and what does each hour stand for? A hard concept, for second graders to be able to do. So we really just stick with right away the hour. I'm going to go into hours like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Seeing the kids who have that, pulling the kids that don't know that right away. And then we start to go into half hours, and then we start going into quarter hours, and that's where second grade standards stop. But I definitely want to put them into minutes, and I want to get them into that, so they understand the entire process of time. So my students that can do it, we go there. My students that don't, and they're still working with the hours or half hours or thing, that's what we're going to stay with then for a while until they're able to go on to the quarter hour. But they're all going to master, or you hope to master by the end of doing the standard that they have. And so, like, measurement, really understanding that, we start out with centimeters and inches. And so in making sure that centimeters and inches are secure. Then we start going into feet, and then we start going into the US customary system and going into yards, and then we go back to metric and we go into what does a decimeter look like? What does a meter look like? And again, it's all building on all of their, previous like centimeters and inches part first. So it's always kind of starting out with like the basics. And then you build and you keep building, and that's what a lot of math is then too, is just understanding of that. So yeah, I think having the family connection to school and that homeschool connection is really important, especially in their learning. So, because if I'm going to send homework home, I want to make sure that the families understand what that homework is or what they're going to be getting for that week. And so every week at the end of, usually on Fridays, I send home what we're going to be doing in reading, what we're going to be doing in math, and what we're going to be doing in writing for the next week. And it's 1 or 2 sentences. So they just have a heads up of what's coming for that week. But then it's like all the information that they're going to to need for our classroom or what we're going to be doing in our classroom for that week coming up. And I just think that that's important to have that, because so many times that then lends to, oh, another question, or did you think of this? And I just think that that's great, because then you have that communication going back and forth. And that then helps too, because like, if the child comes home and they're like, so what did you do today? And the child's like, nothing. And they're like, well, Mr. Dorava said you did, blah, blah, And it's like, it can help with that, that communication then that's at home too. So, and then families just feel more comfortable then to send something back or to say something. And I love that. I love when like parents ask questions and talk about what their childs are doing at home and everything, because you don't get to see that, and they don't get to see what you're doing at school, and and it's a great way to like connect with the different parents and everything, so, or families I should say. I think second grade solidifies a lot of the things that they learned in kindergarten and first grade. I think kindergarten and first grade, they really start to understand their number sense again. And then second grade takes what they know about numbers, and then we start getting into those harder addition, harder subtraction, and the understanding of, the sequence of numbers and things like that. I think that second grade really prepares them for third, and third is a challenge grade. It's really, they have to understand how numbers work, how to put numbers together, how to come up with solutions. And then third grade takes it to two-digit multiplication and division and, all those things. And so second grade, I think, is the solidifying year, that they really have to make sure that they understand that foundation and really understanding of concepts. Then they can go on and really start to like blossom with those concepts in third, fourth, and starting to get higher and higher grades. So, yeah. So that to me is critical. Like, if you don't have it really solidified by the end of second, it's going to be hard for you to go into third, because third grade just kind of takes off. From what you know. At least that's my understanding of it too when I taught third grade. So.